Thank you for joining me today, and it's my great honor to get to speak to somebody who I've admired for quite a while, Leah Darrow, and she's a former model, and now you're a mother and wife and Christian apologist, would you say, or missionary, or
Yeah, those are funny words, aren't they? I'm right now I've been doing a lot of coaching actually. So I am a Christian-based leadership and life coach. And I've been moving into that work for quite a while. Mhm.
wow, awesome. And I think a lot of people have heard your personal testimony, which is beautiful and inspiring to me. I was just wondering if you wanted to talk about maybe something a little different.
Yeah.
Um, one of the one of the blogs that I posted to my webpage was just something I wrote kind of quick and I didn't think much about it, but it was called "How the Famous Sell Their Soul to Satan."
Hmm.
So both of us came, I guess, from the entertainment world, but at different ends of the spectrum.
Right.
I was more in the dark underground, and you were very much in the mainstream as a model. Did what I was curious about, because I did a little bit of research on you online. When you were a child, were you interested at all in being a model or an actress, or was that something that was at an early age that you had an interest in, or no?
No, actually, no.
Really? Okay.
No, I had no interest in being a fashion model. Now, so what was interesting to me, of course, was the idea that this sounds so it sounds so silly to say, but the idea that you're validated.
Mm,
I was interested in being loved. I was
doesn't
interested in,
silly at all.
yeah, I was interested in people saying, "Oh, you did a great job." Like, that's wonderful. That's beautiful. And so I was very much interested in that. And being in front of the camera was never comfortable,
Mm,
ever.
mm,
Even to this day, when I do photo shoots for my work and, for my website and, products I'm launching or things that I'm doing that just require like an updated, picture. Um, I have photographers who constantly tell me, they're like, you were the hardest person to shoot. You will look at the camera and then you look away so quickly. And, I think a little bit of that is just because that's always been the case. And then a lot of it has to do with some probably, sincere PTSD that I have had from working in the industry, and being clearly taken advantage of and knowing it and still doing it. And so there's a massive conflict of interest within my conscience. It's a tough thing to say. That created, I think, those things. So to go back to your original question, no, I never dreamt of becoming a model. I never thought like that's what I would do in my life. And that's what I always wanted to be, was to be an actress. I mean, I was, theatrical as a kid. I was definitely a little bit more dramatic and I loved storytelling and, singing songs. But, when I think I was very comfortable with it because I could control the environment and I could control the audience, which is my mom and my dad. So the idea of doing it on stage in front of people, I really adopted that dream, that idea for me because other people told me I should. Other people mentioned something and said something, and I really began to put my put my value into what other people thought of me versus, God or my parents or what or other things. And so I wanted to be loved and I wanted to be validated. And everybody says, "Oh, you're pretty, so you should be a model." And
yep.
that was always the statement, like, "Well, you're pretty, so here's what you do with that talent." Like, here's the thing. And so, there's a lot of problems with that. One, the problem is seeing beauty as a talent, right? And I think number one. And then two, just thinking like, well, you have to do something with it and it's got to be completely self-serving. And the idea that our talents are self-serving is a really big lie that evil wants to put out there with every talent, every gift we're given. And it's never to like serve the greater good or, serve the kingdom of God. It's always to serve yourself. And so modeling obviously is incredibly self-serving. So
Well, what do you think made you susceptible to that? And not that people weren't being honest or sincere, but what do you think made you susceptible to that flattery? Like, oh, you're beautiful. You could do something with that, rather than say, no, I want to go to college or I want to do this or I want to do that. Because, some people are, I mean, I was a very sort of lonely boy. And I mean, if anybody paid me a compliment when I was like 18 or 19, I would follow them. Now, not everybody would do that, but I was very susceptible to flattery. And so, was there something in you too that you just were in? Because you said you wanted to be loved. So,
Yeah.
of love that way.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's always, I'm sure you experience this as well. Like we were so badly there that we could put our finger on one thing, but it's this collection of many things coming together at a time. And there's a lot of things going on in my home life that were pretty dramatic and traumatic
Mm.
that definitely caused a void that I needed filled that wasn't filled in my family life in terms of um my self-confidence, like a good, sincere, holy self-confidence and being able to be self-governing. And so when I was younger, I was about 12 years old, my grandfather was murdered.
Oh,
And it was I was very, very close to him, incredibly close. And it was my dad's dad. And there was a lot of withdrawal and dealing with grief and this, I won't go into the story, but it was a very big deal. Like in the town that we lived in, there was the trial that went on, the man who killed him, we knew him, and there's all these things that were happening. And so it was traumatic for me. It was my first experience of evil and death. But as this kind of relates back to like myself and like things that did or did not happen that kind of led me to this place of like looking for affirmation in other people. My dad was dealing with all of this. And I think for daughters and their fathers, it's a very, very important relationship. And I don't put it all on my dad for sure, but there was this hole there. My dad was pulling back and he was dealing with his grief. And it was many, many years of dealing with this very traumatic experience that went on. And because of that, that was also during a time in my younger years of like 12 to 15 where little girls really are starting to figure out their identity or trying to find it and trying to find out who they are. And school and the environment that school sometimes can give is not exactly conducive to a healthy self-image. And
no.
so all of these little things combined, and let me tell you something, my parents, and I'm not just saying this to defend them, we speak honestly to one another about the things of my past and the things of,
You were saying that you had spoken to your parents about, things that had happened in your childhood. And I mean, your dad that's horrible. I'm sorry. But yeah, that's tough.
yeah, it left a big hole in all of our lives. And so all of us dealt with it in many different ways. And my dad had a hard time, you know, rebounding. He did, but coming back into just being very active and attentive to the family because of this horrific experience. And it was during a time where I didn't realize, but I actually had a lot of needs um, that I maybe didn't fully express or that they needed to be attended to because we were just when you're in trauma you're just dealing with staying alive, you're in survival mode. um
Yep.
and so I think that that was something in my childhood actually that I look back on and I see that being a part of the puzzle. There was also a lot of people at school, the friends that I had who I was not the popular kid.
Hmm.
I was the very shy kid. I was on the fringe of everybody's group. Like I was never a part of one person's group. I try to hang out with the popular kids, but I was always like the one that they would try to constantly get to like, fill up all the tables at the lunch table so that I wouldn't sit there. And then I try to go to another table. So I was kind of always just trying to find my spot and find my place. And that was very hard for me. And I had, you know, this feels like a sob story, but I had a lot of bullies growing up in grade school and in high school too that really bullied me, terribly so. And that obviously I, took a hit on how I saw myself. Um, I knew that it was problematic. I didn't understand the depths of it, but I remember being in high school and thinking about suicide and it, in some ways attempting it, whatever way I was trying to do it. But I did. And I remember going to my mom about it. And I just didn't know what to do. It was definitely a cry for help. I didn't understand all those things then, but looking back on it, I can see that. And so there was just a lot going on in me about of just not understanding who I was and not being confident in who I was. I always felt like I was not good enough. I always felt like I had to be a part of someone else's group. I was always striving to be someone else and never asking who's Leah? Who did God make Leah to be? What's great about Leah? Like there's some great things about Leah. And there's some things that Leah needs to work on, but
When you're young, that's a tough question.
yeah, they are. But it's like, but those are questions, even if they're tough to answer,
Yeah.
that at least should be asked.
Yeah.
And they're not asked enough. There's not asked enough by people. Maybe more so now. We have a little bit more attention to these issues now, but all of that kind of, I think, added into other things. And there's probably other things that I don't even know about, Joseph, that like were going on that I still has not been revealed to me, that God's just kind of slowly healing me along this way and will reveal more as I move forward.
That testimony is really fascinating because I think your story parallels mine in so many ways. And I think that's a classic background of a lot of people that go into the entertainment business. It's just a lot of people. They lack self-confidence a lot of times, and getting that sort of approval is a way to bolster it up or fill that up, like you said, the void that you felt.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so the one thing I wanted to talk about real quick too is I just wanted to give a background because you're a generation younger than me, and but I grew up very much with, there's pornography and mainstream pop culture nowadays. It's kind of indistinguishable
Yeah.
a lot of times. It's very hard to say, well, this is porn and this is mainstream entertainment because the demarcations have broken down. I mean, it's not a coincidence, I think, that 1953 Marilyn Monroe appeared on the first cover of Playboy magazine. And then you had, like, in the 60s, Jane Mansfield was the first mainstream actress to appear nude in films. And then, like, when I grew up in the 70s, you had what they used to call jiggle TV, which was like Charlie's Angels, Three's Company. Very Television had become very sexualized, and I'm sitting at home watching it. And then, as a boy, and then in the 80s, of course, you had Madonna. And then I
Mhm.
think the lines between what was acceptable and not acceptable was blurred forever. So by the time, like, somebody like me came around in the 90s, it was just wasn't clear because people have asked me, like, well, what was it like to, be on a porn set? And I was like, it was nothing to me. It was nothing. And then, I did a little research on you, and you did some cheesecake, certainly not pornography. But what was that like? It probably, I don't know, I'm putting something into your head, but to me, it was like nothing because you're around that sort of those images your whole life. And then in the industry you're around it, it's not strange, you know. It
Yeah.
doesn't, although you said you were uncomfortable in front of the camera, but did it ever feel like, oh, I'm doing something wrong? I shouldn't be doing this. Or it's just is just my job. This is just something that I do, and everybody else in my industry does the same thing. It's not odd.
Yeah. It was for me, I was aware that it's crossing the line.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
You had a pretty informed conscience though at that time, because I did not. I didn't think it was
Yeah, I definitely did, but I actively, I was willfully ignorant or willfully just choosing to be like, well, like you said, like, well, I mean, this is the industry. Like, this is what everybody does. If I'm going to be a part of it, this is what I got to do. Like, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I was constantly gaslighting myself of it's okay. Like, this is just fine. You are fine with this. Yes, your conscience knows it's wrong. Yes, you know that you're being objectified. Yes, in the depths of your soul and your heart, you know that this doesn't feel good and you know you're being used. But you have to do this if you're going to make it. And so this is the choice you have to make. And this is what being a professional is. This is what being a boss is. This is what being an empowered woman is that you choose to be objectified and you can control it. And you can't, not one bit of it. But no, I did know. I mean, as God is my witness, yes, I knew I shouldn't, and I still
where,
did.
where did you think that came from? Did you have a religious upbringing where, you knew right and wrong and you'd been taught that by
Mhm.
your parents? And okay, so you knew that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And my when I left for New York after being on America's Next Top Model, um, my parent and I left. When I left, okay, let me just say, like, I went to the show, I got on the show, I was eliminated, and then I came home briefly and decided to go back and live in New York. And at the time, in this interim of the short time, I picked up this boyfriend, and we decided to live together. And so I came back home, and I was like, I'm gonna go live with this guy. And my parents are very clear, like, no, like, we do not, like, this is not how we raised you, this is wrong, and you know this. And I said, yeah, I do, and I'm still going to do it.
Okay.
So they were very clear on our faith and what we needed to do. And I was very clear of, like, I'm still going to do what I'm going to do. And it was I mean, it was incredibly sad for my parents. It was an incredibly peaceful is the wrong word, but calm. Like, it was a somber, sober occasion where they kind of laid out everything. And I just came back. I was not angry. I was not mad. I was like, I understand and I agree. Like, I not agree, but like, I hear what you're saying. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just telling you I'm not going to do that. And so,
That's great. I
it's
love it.
just it's I can only imagine, God just being like, how are we ever going to get to her? Like, she's not saying that it's wrong or she disagrees. She's just not going to do it. It's
You were just willful. So, hey,
yes. I mean, but that's how it was. And so I left New York and I went into this lifestyle, not just living with my boyfriend. I mean, that was like the least of my problems, honestly, and the least of my sins, trust me. Um, but yeah, I went into to knowing, yeah,
I
this is
saw I
for
saw
me.
some runway pictures of you. So you were in the scene, you were,
Mhm.
you know. So, hey, I was too. It's very interesting on a much lower level, though. It was very interesting because when I was sort of in and out of my mom and dad's house, I came home with like the cast of the Birdcage, one day.
Mhm.
And my dad was like, oh no, we're not doing this. So I had that same sort of thing, although I was very angry with my parents, unlike you. God bless you. I was pretty upset. Was there a space between you and your parents after that? Was it like, okay, we're gonna, be distant now because you don't know?
No, not at all. In fact, my mom made it a point to still call me every single day.
God bless her.
Yep. And honestly, that phone call is what I look forward to the most every day.
Did they lecture you?
Um,
Like, what are you doing? Are you still with this guy? Or okay,
no, never. No, because the decision was made.
okay.
I think my parents, they know me well enough and they knew the situation where the decision was made. She's like, she's already there. She's in New York. She's far away. She's living with her boyfriend. She's working these jobs and doing, fashion week and doing all this modeling stuff. And at some point, I think they were just like, okay, well, we'll just chat with her. And so my mom would call me and we would honestly sometimes only talk about the weather. Honest to God, it was just very superficial. But we had these conversations, those tiny conversations, short-lived. And even like it would be difficult for me to sometimes bring up the problems I would have in my relationship because I was like, I know she's just going to say, Leah, move out or Leah, come home. So I'd be very careful to bring those up because I was scared to hear the I told you so's, even though that wasn't my mom's style. But I was, you want to be a success. You want to make it, you want to do well, even if it's by your parents. And even if you hate your parents, even if you have all these problems with your parents, you're still trying to do something to prove that like, hey, look at me. Like
True.
I did it right, And so I had great parents. I had great parents who loved me. And I still was just like, I am not going to risk my soul and everything I've done to not make it. I'm going to make it literally, even if it kills me. And so I was careful with my conversations because I wanted to keep up this facade of like being successful and making it with my mom. But the point is, she still called me and she still kept up that communication and kept that line of communication open.
Big lesson. Parents keep talking to your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Even if they don't want to hear from you. And I didn't want to hear from my mom and dad. So moms are great. And I did throughout my life. I think I wanted to get my dad's attention. I think deep down I wanted him to be proud of me, but I went about it the wrong way. Getting back to your career, was there, because I think you kind of touched upon this a little bit. Was there a point, because I this is kind of what I was talking about in that article I wrote. Was there a point where you said, well, you said this crossed the line. Was there a point where you said, okay, I have to do this or it's over? And for me, I did. It's like, well, you have to take your clothes off, but and you make that bargain, and it's strange. It's not like you're saying, well, I'm selling my soul, but it's kind of like, okay, I'm in.
Yeah. I think probably,
Or you walk away. It's hard to walk away.
yeah, they're both really hard to do. Um, they're hard to lower your standards and they're hard to walk away. I think it might be the same type of hard, honestly. They're both so deep and lasting. So both of them happened in one moment. I mean, really just me showing up for my last photo shoot was me lowering the bar for myself.
Mm,
Um, it was for this international magazine and it was just very risque,
mm.
very immodest. And I was trying to be someone else. And I didn't even like the person I was trying to be.
You have to do that. You have to disassociate to a
Yeah,
certain
you
degree.
have to. You have to. When you start diving deep into like really changing your identity and who you are and your actions and behaviors and sins, you have to disassociate yourself if you want to survive, if you want to live, honest to God. I mean, I think that's disassociating myself that sometimes probably kept me alive and not committing suicide, because I just couldn't imagine that that's the same girl that grew up on the farm in Oklahoma. Like there's no way that would just kill me. It makes me like tear up now thinking about it. Like I couldn't do that. And so it was so painful to think about that as the same person. So you have to disassociate from that current self to be this other self for a time being until you remove yourself from that situation and you kind of come back. And so I was in the middle of that photo shoot that I did not want to do, that I lowered the bar for myself to be a part of. And I remember standing there and we had just changed sets. It was a very long day of shooting and we had just changed sets and everything. And I changed into a different outfit and I'm getting into the spot where I needed to be. And it was there in that moment. I remember looking around, I saw everybody. Like there's just tons of people for this shoot. I mean, just so many people. It wasn't just like, like a handful, but dozens of people are there doing all their jobs, hair and makeup and lighting and cameras and set and everything. And so I'm looking around and I just see, and I'm the model, like I'm the one that everybody's looking at and tending to. And I realized,
You're the
I
star.
looked,
Yeah.
yeah, I looked around and I was like, No one cares about me.
Um,
I just thought about that. I'm like, all these people are here.
did you feel
And
like
yeah,
a coat hanger? Just something?
yeah, I actually have a story about that in terms of hanger for a um yeah, that actually is a term that is used in the fashion industry that they don't want anybody to know about. But I was in the middle of fashion week and I was walking down and it was before I hit the runway and I don't know, like three or four girls in front of me. She had some issue, some problem. I don't know what was going on, still don't. But the guy who was in charge of putting the girls through, he was so mad. And I remember him grabbing her shoulders and turning her around and unzipped her, threw her clothes down. She's naked. Um, and then sends her off. She like, you hear the clacking of her heels as she's crawling off, like crying. And he yells in the back. And I'm just like watching everything, like, oh my gosh, what is happening? He yells in the back. He's like, get me a hanger. Get me a hanger. And I'm like, why is he asking? I had no idea. And a girl just runs up, puts that dress on. He zips her up, throws her out. She's on the runway. And I'm like, we're hangers.
Yeah.
That's what they call us. We're hangers. And that hit me. So yeah, there's just so many demeaning aspects of the industry that are kind of probably obvious, but maybe people don't know real stories behind the obvious, but that's one of them. But yeah, going back to,
It looks very glamorous. I don't think people know.
oh yeah, of course. That's why we're there. That's why we signed up because it did look glamorous. And that's
Exactly.
why we did it. We wanted to be beautiful. We wanted to have this great job and it's all the crap statements. It's like, I want to make money and I want to travel and I want to do good for people. And then I'll take my money and help some kids in Africa and do the like, what the heck, man? Like you can't figure out some other way to make money and help some kid in Africa if that's really what your goal is in life, but it's not. It's I'm going to do these things. I'll use money as the way that I'll be a philanthropist and make myself look good later. But the real thing is that I'm terribly insecure and I'm trying to fill all these voids in myself because I won't spend time with myself and God about who I am and who I've been created to be. And that's a hard journey. And that's too
No.
hard sometimes for some people. And you know, it was for me. I'm not like I say all these same things to myself. Like it was too hard for me. I took the easy way out. I took other people telling me that I'm pretty to make myself feel good. I mean, that's pathetic, but that's what I did. And so, you know, that's the life that I lived for a long time. And it's also the life that kicked my butt, you know, that like completely um, destroyed parts of me that, you know, praise God, he is rebuilding and restoring now. But it does things to you that you just it's hard to understand by just the surface. And you know, it does things to you deeply of how you see the world and people and yourself. And it still rears its ugly head. It's something God continues to heal in me because of the depths of um, distortion that goes on in such an industry like that. But
But
yeah, yeah.
you came out the other end and now you're helping other people. Real,
Amen.
yeah, real quick. When you're talking about disassociating, well, I brought it up. And when you play those head games, how do you get out of it? And then also, what are you inviting in? It gets very dark real quick. Because I know that after, because you talked about coming from the farm,
Mm-hmm.
and I came from the vineyards of Napa to San Francisco and LA, and you change. You look in the mirror one day and you go, yeah, I don't know this person.
Yep. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, I mirrors were my nightmare. Like I wouldn't even want to look in a mirror because I didn't want to see myself. Like I which was it's so, you know, ironic that here I am, this fashion model, and I am literally avoiding mirrors. I'm like, I can't look at myself. I don't want to see myself. I don't want to see that person because if I look too long, I'll see who she used to be.
Well, that's like the portrait of Dorian Gray. It was just, yeah, there was something in the background. Leah, what I wanted to talk about in our last minutes together is that, well, people may be thinking, well, you know, Leah's unusual. You know, she was, you know, a supermodel, and that's not something that I have in my family or something that I deal with, or it's something very far removed from my everyday existence. Well, full stop here. Now we're from a different generation. Now everything is online. And you can be a supermodel online. You can become famous instantaneously through Instagram, TikTok, and people young are posing nude and doing all these things online instantaneously. You don't have to go to New York. You don't have to go to LA. You can just stay in your home and it seems safe. And, I get, this wasn't the space I grew up in.
Yeah.
And now it's scary because when we talk about selling our soul to the industry, you can do it in a very subtle way.
Hmm.
Um, at home again. People
Yeah.
have these only fans or fans only, and all this stuff works. It just goes on and on. In my day, if you wanted to be a porn actor, you had to go to a studio and have an agent or whatever. Now it's all at home and there's no
Yeah.
age limit. It's very scary.
Yeah, it is scary, and we should be scared by it. I mean, this should concern us. Like you said, like now you can, I think whatever your statement was, like now you can become a star at home, or now you can destroy your life at home. Like
Oh,
now you can
wow.
become, now you can dissociate by yourself, all in your room with your phone, and go down the spiral of that evil and darkness. Let me tell you something. It's it is absolutely something as parents we have a responsibility to more than ever to protect our kids and keep them away from those voices and these people and these industries run by a group of people that are not loving you. Let me tell you that. Okay. We need to keep our children away from those as much as we can. And we actually have more control than we think. And I know it's harder as they get older. I understand that right now, but especially if we can, if you've got small kids too, I mean, starting young and starting early, of protecting your kids from technology is one of the key ways to do that. And not just doing that, not just keeping them away, but also starting to work on helping them understand who they are and their identity and their self-image, so that it's so, because they will encounter it at some point. At some point they're going to, and at some point they're going to question these things, and they're going to make decisions, and they're not going to be great decisions, and we're going to have to work with our kids through those tough decisions. But the foundation we can lay beforehand is like, keep them away from technology as long as you can, so that it gives you more time to build up their identity and their self-confidence, with Christ in mind during that time. But yeah, I mean, it's an absolute epidemic. It is a new level of distortion of truth and identity that Satan has put into the world, in a very disgusting way. And it's very hard to look for help, because where do you go? I mean, you know, the church, depending on, what church you go to, some of those churches are pretty broken themselves, and they're hiding it themselves. So then, like, what do you do? And so there's a lot of problems. There is right cause for parents to be very frustrated with the current situation in the world, and how, as it relates to us and our children, as well as where do we go to for help in the places that we thought could help us, but are right now, no longer trustworthy sources.
This is why the Lord raises up voices like yours. And I think the scenario that you described so eloquently and that played out in my life too, I think can play out with these young people online, is they are looking for affirmation, and you can get it either, I don't know how all these things work, but you can get it through likes or tweets or subscriptions or fans or whatever. All that stuff that played out in the wider world for you can play out for these people online, and it's very scary. I don't have children, but if I did, I don't know what I would do. I think I would not let them out of the house. I don't know. I certainly wouldn't let them have a smartphone. I would give them
No,
a flip phone.
no, yeah, I agree. There's no way. There's no way. Like, I mean, I have 6 kids here on earth. I have one in heaven,
Oh,
and
I'm sorry.
it's okay. Yeah, she's fighting for us. That's our little Amelia in heaven. And uh my oldest is only 9. So I'm a mama to many young babies. So I'm not telling you that I have all the answers. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just telling you I've been there and I've done that. And my story used to be uncommon of like, oh, well, she's a fashion model. Oh, she did those things. I mean, I would never do that. And, I'm whatever the thought is. But now that's not the case. Now my story is everybody's story. My story can be everybody's story if you open up the phone and you put an account up and you start seeking out attention, love, affirmation, worth because of what you show yourself as. Either you show too much of yourself or you're just putting yourself out there. I see this all the time. It's disgusting in Catholic social media, by the way. And I'm sorry, but I call this out all the time. But Catholic social media, whatever that phrase is the most toxic place I've ever encountered on the planet. And I see accounts all the time of people, and I'm sure, I hope at least their intention is good. I can't say that I'm sure it is. I hope it is. But you see these accounts of like, this is the right way to pray, and this is how I start my day. And it's this over legalistic approach to this faith. And now everyone's like feeling less than because, well, I don't have the right candle and my house doesn't look that great. Like, it's not just for the people who are looking for love and validation from like how they look. It is love validation for across the board. The devil does not discriminate when he wants to take you down. And so he wants to take you down for sure. Every single one of us, he wants to take down, burning in hell. And so every level of the sphere, like there's no safe space in terms of social media. Like, okay, if I go here and hang out with these people, none of that will happen. Like that is an absolute lie. Again, I do believe from Satan too, of like, oh no, you're safe here because everybody, is in the same church or believes the same thing. But it's in every place. And so sometimes it's even worse in those places that have a faith-based component to them. And I see this all the time. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I unfollowed, I think, every single Catholic account. As I can't do this anymore. Like, this is a toxic experience, and it's also not helping my faith at all. I'm not growing at all by this group of people who are trying to do the best thing that they can. That's just my personal approach. I'm not saying that that's what everybody needs to do, but for me, and maybe it's because I've been in the Catholic world and I've been a little too close than I wanted to be in terms of knowing too much, maybe because of the exposure I have to different experiences and people and priests and bishops and popes, where you start to know too much and you start to find out what like the curtain is pulled and you see how organizations or hierarchy is working and you're like, wait a minute. I don't think I like that. So I fully admit that because of that exposure and the experience and the role that I have, it's given me maybe a viewpoint that maybe other people don't have and don't share. And that's fine. But for me and for my own sanity, I had to have some distance between a lot of those accounts and myself.
I think God is raising up and has raised up the broken. And I've been broken and I'm honest about it. And so have you. So I feel an immediate kinship with you. And I know a lot of other people do, because we can't judge anyone because we've been there and we went down every wrong road. So we're not going to set ourselves up on a high and mighty, cloud up in the sky, because we've been down. I mean, I've been down in the gutter. So I can't. So my heart goes out and I feel that same empathy and compassion that in you. And I think that's what a lot of people have looked for, because there's so many people that are broken and they're just like, am I the only one? I feel so bad. I feel so guilty. I don't know how to get out of it. I don't know what to do. And then they see somebody like you that's, hey, they've survived. They came out the other end. I can do it too. I have hope. And that's where I love you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's likewise. Yeah. It's, one of the comments that I do receive on social media, speaking of the bad parts, I can give a good part too, is one of the most common things I've received over the years. I mean, 14 years, almost 15 years now, is people will say, thank you for being vulnerable.
Yes.
Thank you for being real. Um, and I'm like that means so much to me because I think that there's too many there's too many ways out there for you to look at things of how you should be, and there's not enough people who are talking about true repentance and love. And if you're not on a path to repentance, I don't know what to do with that. I don't know. I just know that I know I'm a sinner. I pray that Jesus prayer every single day. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. I mean, it's the only prayer I think I pray on repeat in my head now as of late. And I encourage people to do the same because I'm like, look, you know, I'm following Christ and I'm doing it imperfectly. So don't follow me, follow Christ. Now I'll link hands with you and I'll go in the same direction that you're going with him. But this is real. Like this is hard and I'm dealing with my own stuff. So as long as you're okay with that and know that, then we can walk together. But I'm not, don't put me on the pedestal. Don't put me on a place of like, oh, look what she did. No, you can do that too. All I did is that I was a sinner. And at one point, praise God, by his grace, I repented and I'm still repenting and I'm still in that space. And I think that it, praying for vulnerability and being able to show that to others is a very healing aspect that we need more today.
Yes, yes, yes. Everyone, parents too, including. Be vulnerable with your kids. My dad did later in life, and then a whole new door opened up to his life that I hadn't seen,
Yeah.
and everything made so much sense. So yeah, don't be afraid. And thank you for spending this time with me, Leah.
You're
Thank you.
so welcome. I'm so happy that I got to. I have your book, which is why I think we initially connected because I ordered your
Oh,
book and I'm not through it yet. So don't quiz me. But what I've read is so good and so needed in a story that many people need to read, especially people inside the Roman Catholic Church.
thank
It's
you.
incredibly important to open our eyes to very hard things. And I just want to thank you for being brave and sharing those very vulnerable and hard pieces of your own life that are healing others in ways that only God knows. Um, and it's so needed. We need to be able to, before we point out everybody else's wounds, kind of look at our own and spend time in doing that good work.
Coming from you, that means a lot because you're a hero of mine. So thank you so much. And you're in my prayers.
Oh,
Please,
I need them.
thank you. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.